Nathan Carter sat at the kitchen table of his modest suburban home in Nashville, Tennessee, the late afternoon light streaming through the window, casting a warm golden glow across the scratched wooden surface, the faint sound of a lawnmower humming in the distance, a half-eaten sandwich resting on a plate in front of him, his laptop open to a spreadsheet of invoices for his small landscaping business. When his phone buzzed sharply against the table, a single text notification lighting up the screen, he glanced at it, expecting a message from a client, but his stomach dropped as he saw the name, Claire Carter, his wife of 12 years. The message was short, cold, devastating. Nathan, I want a divorce, all communication through my lawyer, Mr. Daniels, details to follow, 12 years of marriage, countless shared mornings over coffee, late-night talks about their dreams. The little moments like dancing in the kitchen to an old country song, all shattered in a single text. They'd had breakfast together just that morning, Claire smiling as she talked about a weekend getaway to the Smoky Mountains. Nothing had hinted at this. Nathan stared at the screen, his fingers hovering over the phone, a storm of emotions swirling inside, shock, betrayal, a deep, aching hurt, but on the surface, a strange calm settled over him. Claire had set the rules, lawyers only, fine, he'd play by them. He typed a reply, his hands steady despite the chaos in his chest, understood, and hit send. The moment the message went through, a cold clarity took over. If Claire wanted a legal battle, he'd protect himself. Their finances had always been semi-separate, a lesson Nathan had learned from his uncle's bitter divorce. Claire had her own account for her part-time baking business, but she relied heavily on Nathan's income. Her credit cards were supplementary, tied to his accounts, not joint, just authorized user status. He opened his banking app, his fingers moving quickly, logged into the credit card section, cancelled her cards with a few clicks, reported user no longer authorized, done. The monthly allowance he'd been transferring to her account for her baking supplies and personal spending, he cancelled that too, stopping the recurring transfer effective immediately. Shared subscriptions, Spotify, Hulu, the gym membership, all under his name. He logged out all other devices, changed the passwords. If Claire wanted to stream music or work out, she'd have to pay for it herself now. The SUV she drove was leased in Nathan's name. His insurance, he didn't cancel the insurance right away, too risky for everyone on the road, but he made a mental note to address the lease with his lawyer soon. The gas card tied to one of the cancelled credit cards, useless now. It took less than 20 minutes to sever the financial ties, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Claire had drawn a line in the sand, demanding a formal, legal separation, and Nathan was simply following her lead. An hour later, an email arrived with Mr. Daniels' contact details. Nathan forwarded it straight to Ms. Harper, a highly recommended divorce attorney a friend had suggested. He emailed Ms. Harper, received divorce demand via text, client insists on lawyer-only communication, complied, need urgent counsel on next steps, asset protection, retainer. He hit send, then leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. The house suddenly felt too quiet. Claire must have packed her things while he was out on a job that morning. Her favorite mug was gone from the counter, her coat missing from the rack by the door. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. She'd planned this. She'd sat across from him at breakfast, smiling, while knowing she was about to end their marriage. Nathan's hands clenched into fists, a raw anger bubbling beneath his calm exterior. 12 years, and she couldn't even give him the decency of a conversation. Just a text, a lawyer, and a disappearing act. He stood up, pacing the kitchen, his mind racing. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a betrayal. But Nathan wasn't the type to crumble. He'd built his business from nothing. He'd survived worse storms than this. He'd fight to protect what was his, even if it meant facing the woman he'd once loved in a courtroom, even if it meant uncovering whatever secrets Claire was hiding. Because something told him this was just the beginning of a much uglier battle. Nathan Carter leaned against the counter of his small landscaping office in Nashville, Tennessee, the early evening air heavy with the scent of fresh-cut grass and damp earth, a faint orange glow from the setting sun filtering through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the cluttered desk, a stack of unpaid invoices sitting untouched since Claire's bombshell text 3 days ago, his phone resting silently on a pile of paperwork. The weight of those 72 hours pressing down on him like a lead blanket. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying every moment of their last breakfast together, her laughter, the way she brushed her hair behind her ear while talking about the Smoky Mountains, a trip that now felt like a cruel lie. The betrayal stung deeper with every passing hour, but Nathan had kept himself busy, meeting with Ms. Harper, his lawyer, to strategize, gathering financial records to protect his business, trying to hold himself together while the life he'd known unraveled. The silence was shattered when his phone rang, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Nathan's gut twisted, a mix of dread and anticipation gripping him. He answered, his voice steady but low. "This is Nathan Carter." A sharp, impatient voice cut through the line. "Mr. Carter, this is Mr. Daniels. I represent Claire Carter. My client is facing some serious difficulties, and we need to address them immediately." Nathan's jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the edge of the counter. Daniels' tone carried a thinly veiled accusation. "Her credit cards have been declined, her funds cut off without warning. This is highly irregular, Mr. Carter. The financial status quo is typically maintained during a separation." Nathan took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm, the anger simmering beneath the surface threatening to boil over. He spoke, his voice cold but controlled. "Mr. Daniels, 3 days ago, my wife sent me a text demanding a divorce and stating all communication must go through you. I acknowledged her request and complied. The informal financial arrangements we had are no longer valid. Future support will be handled through formal legal channels. As Claire requested, you'll need to discuss this with my attorney, Ms. Harper. I forwarded you her contact details." There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling on the other end. Daniel's voice grew sharper. "My client is in distress, Mr. Carter. She can't even afford basic necessities. She's had to find temporary accommodation. This is unacceptable." Cutting her off so abruptly suggests bad faith on your part. Nathan's grip on the counter tightened, his knuckles whitening. The accusation stung, but it also fueled a flicker of defiance. He thought of the empty house, Claire's mug missing from the counter, the way she planned her exit while smiling at him over breakfast, and now she was playing the victim. "Mr. Daniels," Nathan said, his tone icy, "my wife ended our marriage with a text. She set the rule of lawyers only. She broke the trust and communication we had. I've done exactly what she asked. If she's struggling, that's a consequence of her own choices. Financial support will be determined legally, not through emergency calls about declined cards. She wasn't the primary holder of those accounts, you know that." A longer pause followed. Daniel's voice cooled, but there was an edge of frustration. "My client is seeking emergency financial relief. We'll be filing for it immediately. This isn't over." Nathan's heart pounded, adrenaline surging through him, but his voice remained steady. "That's her right, Mr. Daniels. File whatever you need to. My attorney has your details. We'll handle this through the proper channels, per my wife's directive. Good day." He hung up, his hands trembling slightly as he set the phone down, the adrenaline still coursing through him. A mix of anger and validation washing over him. Claire had wanted a cold, legal fight, and that's exactly what she was getting. Nathan walked to the window, staring out at the fading sunlight, the orange glow now a deep red, his mind racing with what came next. Claire's distress didn't surprise him. She'd always relied on him to handle the bills, the leases, the stability, but she'd thrown that stability out the window with a single text. Now she was scrambling, and Nathan couldn't help but wonder what else she was hiding. Why had she left so suddenly? What was she running from, or to? He clenched his fists, a grim determination settling in his chest. He'd followed her rules, played her game, but he wouldn't let her paint him as the villain. He'd fight for what was his, for the business he'd built, for the life he deserved, even if it meant facing her in court, even if it meant uncovering truths that might break him all over again. Nathan Carter stood in the driveway of his suburban Nashville home, the early morning air cool against his skin, the faint scent of blooming magnolias mixing with the exhaust of his pickup truck as he loaded tools for a landscaping job. A week had passed since Claire's devastating text demanding a divorce, 7 days of sleepless nights, replaying every moment of their 12 years together, the way she'd laughed at his bad jokes, the way they'd planned to one day buy a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Dreams that now felt like ash in his mouth. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from Ms. Harper, his lawyer. Daniels filed for emergency spousal support and exclusive use of the house. "Call me." Nathan's stomach twisted, a bitter taste rising in his throat. Claire had already moved out, likely staying with her sister, and now she wanted the house. The audacity of her entitlement hit him like a slap. He dialed Ms. Harper, her voice calm but firm. "Nathan, they're asking for an astronomical amount, enough to cover her old lifestyle, designer bags, spa days, the works, plus the house you're still living in. Will counter with a reasonable amount based on her actual needs, not wants, and highlight that she left the home voluntarily. Her lawyer's only rule set this in motion. Your actions were a direct response. Nathan nodded, though she couldn't see him, his voice low. She's trying to bleed me dry, isn't she? Ms. Harper sighed, looks like it, but we've got a strong case. I'll handle the filing. Stay sharp. The call ended, but the weight on Nathan's chest only grew heavier. He climbed into his truck, the engine rumbling to life, his mind racing as he drove to the job site. Claire's demands weren't just about money, they were about control, about punishing him for not begging her to stay. Later that evening, as Nathan sat on his couch, a microwave dinner growing cold on the coffee table, his phone rang again. This time it was Sarah, Claire's best friend. He hesitated, then answered, hoping for some insight. Nathan, what the hell is wrong with you? Sarah's voice was sharp, accusatory. Claire's crashing on my couch, she can't even buy groceries. You've made her homeless. How could you do this to her after 12 years? Nathan's grip on the phone tightened, his voice steady but edged with frustration. Sarah, Claire demanded a divorce via text. She said all communication through lawyers. I respected her wishes. She barely works, her baking business brings in pocket change. She chose this process, not me. Sarah's tone didn't soften. She's terrified. Nathan, she made a mistake going straight to a lawyer. She was emotional. She didn't think it through. She deserves support. You always took care of her. Nathan's jaw clenched, a raw anger surging through him. And I would have, Sarah, I would have talked things out, worked through it, but she ended our marriage with a text and lawyered up. She set the rules, I'm following them. If she's struggling, she can take it up with her lawyer. That's what she wanted. Sarah's voice turned venomous. She'll take everything you have. Nathan, you'll regret this. The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Nathan's voice dropped, cold and final. She can try, Sarah, my attorney's handling it. I'm not discussing this further. Goodbye. He hung up, his heart pounding, the accusation echoing in his mind. Claire was spinning a narrative of victimhood, painting him as the heartless villain, but the truth was uglier. That same night, Nathan got an alert from his bank, an attempted withdrawal from an old joint savings account he'd forgotten about. One they'd opened years ago for a vacation they never took. It only had $300 left. Claire had found the debit card and tried to drain it. The bank flagged the activity on the dormant account. Nathan drove straight to the branch the next morning, explained the pending divorce, and froze the account pending legal agreement. It wasn't about the money, it was the principle. She was working behind the scenes, trying to take what she could while her lawyer accused him of bad faith. Nathan sat in his truck outside the bank, staring at the steering wheel, a mix of fury and exhaustion washing over him. Claire wasn't just fighting for support, she was fighting dirty, trying to undermine him at every turn. He thought of the house, the business, the life he'd built, all now at risk because of her betrayal, but Nathan wasn't backing down. He'd already survived her leaving, he'd survive this too. He'd fight with every ounce of strength he had, because if Claire wanted a war, she'd get one, and Nathan was ready to face whatever came next, no matter how messy, no matter how painful. Nathan Carter sat on a hard wooden bench outside a courtroom in the Davidson County Courthouse in Nashville, Tennessee, the air inside thick with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee, the hum of hushed conversations echoing off the high ceilings, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple despite the cool air. 3 weeks had passed since Claire's text demanding a divorce, 3 weeks of sleepless nights, his small landscaping business teetering under the stress of legal fees and missed jobs. Today was the emergency support hearing, a battle Nathan knew would set the tone for the entire divorce. Ms. Harper had prepared him. They'll paint Claire as a victim. Nathan will counter with the facts, her text, her actions, her income. Stay calm, let me handle it. But as Nathan watched Claire walk into the courtroom, her head held high, her eyes avoiding his, a wave of nausea hit him. She looked stressed, her usual polished appearance replaced by dark circles under her eyes, but there was a defiance in her posture that made Nathan's blood boil. The hearing began. Mr. Daniels stood, his voice dripping with indignation. Your Honor, my client has been left destitute by Mr. Carter's malicious actions. He cut off her access to funds without warning, leaving her unable to afford basic necessities. She's been forced to couchsurf with a friend. We request immediate spousal support to restore her to the lifestyle she's accustomed to, as well as exclusive use of the marital home." Nathan's fists clenched, the lies pouring from Daniel's mouth a bitter pill to swallow. Miss Harper rose, her voice steady. "Your Honor, let's set the record straight. Mrs. Carter initiated this divorce with a text message, explicitly demanding all communication go through lawyers. Here's the proof." She held up a printed screenshot of the text. Mr. Carter complied, canceling supplementary cards and allowances tied to his accounts. After the text, he has continued to pay the mortgage, utilities, and car lease, major expenses. While Mrs. Carter's part-time baking business generates income, she's not destitute, she's simply missing discretionary funds for luxuries. Furthermore, she attempted to drain a dormant joint account after demanding lawyers only, a clear violation of her own rules. Harper slid bank records across the table. The judge's brow furrowed as he reviewed the evidence. Daniels interjected, "Your Honor, my client felt intimidated. She had no choice but to involve lawyers," but the judge cut him off, his tone sharp. "Mrs. Carter, why didn't you discuss this with your husband before escalating to this point?" Claire's voice was small, almost rehearsed. "I felt overwhelmed, I didn't know what else to do." The judge's expression remained skeptical. "Your actions have consequences, Mrs. Carter. Your attempt to access funds outside the legal process you demanded doesn't help your case." The ruling came swiftly, temporary support ordered, but far closer to Ms. Harper's figure than Daniel's, enough for Claire's basic needs. A small contribution to legal fees, but nothing for her old lifestyle of lavish spending. Nathan exhaled, a small victory, but the war was far from over. That week, Claire's tactics turned uglier. First, a call came from Nathan's biggest client, a local HOA. "We got an anonymous tip, Nathan. Someone said you've been cutting corners, using cheap materials. We might have to reconsider our contract." Nathan's heart sank. He built his reputation on quality. This was a lie. A clear attempt to sabotage his business. He spent hours on the phone, reassuring the client, offering to show receipts for every bag of mulch, every shrub. The client backed off, but the damage was done, the stress gnawing at him. Then came the second blow. Claire's mother, Linda, called late one night, her voice thick with tears. "Nathan, how could you do this to my baby? She's struggling." The judge was unfair. "You need to give her more. Think of the years she gave you." Nathan's voice was flat. "Linda, Claire chose this path, lawyers handle the financials." As she demanded, "I can't discuss this with you." Linda's tone turned sharp. "You're heartless, Nathan, you'll pay for this." The call ended, but the emotional manipulation left Nathan reeling. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. The weight of the attacks crushing him. Claire wasn't just fighting for money, she was trying to break him, to ruin his business, his peace, his sense of self. But Nathan's resolve hardened. He wouldn't let her win, not like this. He'd fight with everything he had, even if it meant facing more lies, more betrayal. He'd protect what was his, no matter the cost. The morning after Linda's manipulative call, Nathan Carter drove his pickup truck through the quiet streets of Nashville, Tennessee, the early sunlight glinting off the windshield, the city waking up with the hum of delivery trucks and the chatter of joggers. But inside the cab, Nathan's mind was a storm. Claire's tactics, first the anonymous complaint to his client, then her mother's tearful accusations, had left him raw, angry, but also resolute. He wasn't just reacting anymore, he needed to take control. To secure his future against her underhanded moves, he pulled into the parking lot of a small coffee shop where Miss Harper had agreed to meet, the bell above the door jingling as he stepped inside, the aroma of roasted coffee beans a brief comfort against the chaos of the past month. Miss Harper was already at a corner table, a stack of papers in front of her, her expression focused. "Nathan, we've got work to do," she said, sliding a legal pad across the table. "Claire's playing dirty, but that's a double-edged sword. It shows her bad faith. We can use it." Nathan nodded, his jaw tight. "I'm done letting her call the shots. What's next?" Ms. Harper leaned forward, her voice steady. "First, the SUV, she's still driving it, but the lease is in your name. We'll send Daniels a letter." Temporary support was ordered, so Claire needs to either take over the lease or return the vehicle. You stop payments next cycle. Insurance you've been covering ends in 30 days. Her problem now, Nathan thought of the sleek SUV Claire had insisted on leasing 2 years ago. A status symbol she loved showing off at her baking events. The irony wasn't lost on him. She wanted independence, but still clung to his resources. "Do it," he said, his voice firm. Miss Harper continued, "Next, the house. Since Claire left and the judge didn't grant her exclusive use, we'll file for formal exclusive use on your behalf. We'll also start the valuation process for a sale or buyout. She won't have the funds to buy you out, so a sale is likely. We need to establish clear legal control of the asset division." Nathan's mind flashed to the house, the creaky porch swing where they'd watched sunsets, the kitchen where they'd danced to old country tunes. It hurt to let it go, but keeping it meant keeping Claire's shadow over his life. "I'm ready to sell," he said, his tone resolute. Miss Harper scribbled a note, then looked up. "One more thing, we need full financial discovery. I suspect Claire's hiding assets. Her baking business might be underreporting income, or she could have accounts we don't know about. We'll push for transparency. If she's hiding anything, it'll backfire in court." Nathan's eyes narrowed, remembering Claire's attempt to drain their old joint account. "She's already shown she'll play dirty. I wouldn't put it past her." Miss Harper nodded. "Exactly, and we'll document every move she makes. The complaint to your client, the calls from her mother. It's a pattern of harassment. It'll influence the final settlement, maybe even legal fees." Nathan felt a flicker of hope, a sense of momentum. He wasn't just defending himself anymore, he was fighting back. The meeting wrapped up, and Nathan stepped back into the Nashville sunlight, his resolve stronger than ever. But Claire wasn't done. That afternoon, his phone buzzed with a text from her, breaking her own lawyers-only rule. "Nathan, you can't take the SUV. How am I supposed to get to my events? Stop this now." The audacity of her message made Nathan's blood boil. He screenshotted the text, sent it to Miss Harper with a note, "She's contacting me directly, against her own rules," then replied to Claire, "Per your instructions, all communication via lawyers. Contact Mr. Daniels." He hit send, a grim satisfaction settling in his chest. Claire wanted to play both sides, victim and manipulator. But Nathan wasn't falling for it. Over the next few days, he threw himself into his work, meeting clients, hauling bags of mulch, trimming hedges, the physical labor a welcome distraction from the legal storm. But each night, as he sat on the porch swing, the emptiness of the house pressed down on him. He thought of the life he'd imagined with Claire, the cabin in the Smoky Mountains, the kids they'd talked about having, all gone now, replaced by a fight for survival. Yet in that solitude, Nathan found clarity. He wasn't fighting for the past anymore, he was fighting for his future, a future where he could rebuild, free from Claire's toxicity, free to find peace, to maybe one day laugh again without the weight of betrayal. He wouldn't let her break him, not now, not ever.